have to tell you, I find it hard to take when people run in circles. It's a very, very mad world. Mad world.
All right. Wow. I am delighted at all the faces on the screen. Good to see you.
Mm, well, thank you for doing this, Dean. I just want to say that. Thank you.
My pleasure. Absolutely. I am it's very, very alive for me. This what we're going to be talking about today, this newest large scale course offering here. It's very alive for me. Like this is not just some course of some internet outpost. This is a remarkably alive creation, not just of myself, but a number of people that I have been having the privilege of walking this path with for years. I'm going to be sharing with you some very um, for me inspiring and soulful words from one of my mentors and one of his apprentices, I guess I would say. And all of this is to say that this is an alignment of voices that I've been listening to and speaking with and singing with for a long time. And it's a joy to bring it to you. Yeah, it's an extraordinary time. I come bearing gifts. So I would appreciate if we could just do a very quick introduction of ourselves, what you're comfortable sharing about your name and perhaps where you're from, and what has you be here. Something along the lines of what matters to you in such a way that being here is a good thing for you on a Saturday. And really curious what has you motivated to spend time together here on this Saturday. So is there anybody, actually, let me just begin. I'm Dean Walker, and I've been leading this and creating this space called Living Resilience for going on 10 years now, including a weekly support group called Safe Circle on Tuesday evenings. Also an online podcast on the YouTube. It's a YouTube channel called The Poetry of Predicament. More recently, in the past couple of years, putting together an online community space, a Mighty Networks space. And that's where the coursework is, and that's where the special focus groups keep their materials and so on. In about 2017, I wrote and had written and then released my only book to date is The Impossible Conversation, Choosing Resilience and Reconnection at the End of Business as Usual. And that came from what started out in my early teenage years as a vivid, vivid message that we would do great damage to our mother, to Mother Earth, to this planet, and hence to ourselves as well. And that was a lot to carry as a young person. I found very few adults who could have that conversation and make sense of it with me or for me. So I perhaps some of you have listened to my recounting this in various um, podcast interviews and so on. I'll spare you the details, but what matters now is that come up to about 15 years ago, I got my cage rattled that it was not going to be around 2100 that the big waves of damage would occur, but it would happen much sooner than that. And I set about vetting that message, that new message, that more urgent and accelerated and intensified message. And I did do that. And in the course of doing that over a couple of years of then writing the book as well, I saw that it was not only going to happen well before 2100, but it was almost on a monthly basis. The timeline was being shortened. These waves of inarguable negative impacts from human beings on both Earth and human systems were going to be happening sooner and sooner. I notice I'm modeling this by giving you a long story. I wanted to give you some context for this work, for my book, and so on. So I'll ask you to be briefer, please. And thank you so much for your patience with this. I hope it is somewhat useful to get some context for this. What I'm very pleased, the gift that I was only partially kidding about bringing today is in addition to the remarkable level of urgency and intensification that I do get a sense of and have been getting a sense of for more than a decade now, I also am finding profound and loving and caring allies in the space. So I'm bringing what I can of the clearest representation of what's going on in terms of the urgency and the impact and so on. And I'm also very pleased to share with you some of the gifts of the various circles that I have the privilege of being connected with and being inspired by. I will stop there. Again, I hope that was just some useful background to what is this work and where did it come from and how did it happen for me. I'm wondering if each of you could just share briefly about your name, where you're from, and what matters most to you in a fashion that you could share what has you be here and be curious about how to come together with others in this time. Is there anybody who would like to start that out?
Sure.
Sure, Sencho, thank you.
My name is Sancho. I practice my life with the support of my, in the support of my Zen Buddhist practice and larger Zen Buddhist community, which ultimately I think led me to looking at collapse awareness and collapse acceptance. And I think that I've been actually, without knowing it, preparing for right now by being so urgently aware that I needed to move in with my family. I live in Brooklyn. And so in the middle of October, I'm moving a little bit upstate New York to Cold Spring across from the military academy, West Point, with my oldest daughter and her family. And it's as I was acclimating myself to what Living Resilience is doing and, a vast number of other sources of information, podcasts, and et cetera, about our predicament as a globe. I realized, I'm doing the exactly right thing. I mean, I need to be with my family. I need to be supporting my family. And I need my family. So, I've got a lot of background that I hope, in my life so far that I've learned about, that I hope I can help not just myself and my family, but help others as well. So that's my life right now. So
Great.
thanks for being with me.
Thank you. Robert, would you tell us a little bit about what has you be here?
I'll contribute if I can. Yeah, so I have a sense that I know Dean has worked on things, and I've come to have, high respect for Dean and his work and his dedication and such. And so I have a feeling that this offering this year has real depth and substance. And so and that's kind of what I need. And so why am I here? I'm here because I need that. I need to get grounded, and it's another way, I guess of saying getting connected. And I also feel, Dean has taken on, this responsibility to help people, and it's remarkable, and it's so needed, and so rare, and so to not be part of it also is also to fail in some way, to be responsible. So I thank everybody for being here too, and I thank Dean.
Hey, Robert, could I just ask where you're located?
Sure, I'm in the Poconos in Pennsylvania.
Cool. Thanks.
And Robert soon will be a voice on the podcast, the series of interviews that we're doing in parallel with this course for the next year. And in fact, Richard Lowenthal was one of the first handful of voices to show up on the podcast, an author from the Medium website. And Richard, I'm wondering if you would share a little bit about what has you be here.
Yeah, sure. Boy, where to start? I mean, this has been an amazing odyssey for me in my life. I'm in Texas, very red state, very conservative. So I'm kind of like a fish out of water here. It's kind of weird, strange. But anyway, no, I've studied environmentalism and worked as an environmental educator quite a bit, and also as a counselor. So I have training in psychology and counseling. There's a confluence for me of issues and collapse in my personal life, and the collapse going on in the larger world, because my life partner, Darlene, had a bad stroke a little over 5 years ago, and she's very, her activities and her, abilities are really restricted by the stroke. So in a way, my personal life went through a collapse, a little over 5 years ago, and that's sort of continuing, although we're coping with it. And then you got the larger collapses happening in the world around us. And part of the reason I'm here is because, I keep writing about this subject from every different angle, but it's so frustrating to me, the levels of denial in our society. It's just incredible. And it's hard to deal with. Personally, I find it very painful. It's very discouraging. It's very painful. And the levels of denial and just gross incompetence in terms of dealing with all these crises is frightening. It's really pretty horrendous. So I'm looking to share with other people who have similar awareness and are struggling to cope with all this crap, basically.
I thank you for sharing what you have, and I look forward to our next time in a podcast setting as well. That was really great for me. Thank you. Rebecca, would you share with us what has you here?
Yes. I live in North Carolina and near Asheville, North Carolina. I was born and raised in Colombia, South America, and been in the States since graduated from high school. I'm a psychotherapist as well, kind of like Richard. So I've been interested in the inner journey, of course, for a long, long time. I've been a therapist for about 40 years and got involved with the transition movement and really interested in the inner transition, which is an aspect of the transition movement.
Mhm.
Got really involved in the work that reconnects as well.
Mhm.
And then moved to North Carolina from Florida and then dealt with moving things. So kind of took a break from my immersion in this collapse world. And it's returning now that I'm settling in and want to start. I live in a so-called intentional community, and amazingly, a community that really doesn't talk about this stuff.
Mhm.
So I started a sociocracy type protocol here in the community to give the community a little bit more agency to make decisions. It's been really, really interesting. And I'm hoping with others to start a resilience circle where we address all of this. Now, as far as me personally, I really have been grappling with what's going on, not sure what to make of it, and feeling like I'm landing temporarily in a place of recognizing the wisdom. There's so much wisdom that exists in this world, so much good that exists in this world,
Mhm.
and thinking these are the seeds of the future. So feeling a little bit more optimistic in spite of the ending of this business as usual. So really eager to be here, really eager to dive deeper, dive deeper into this and sharing. And I've been involved a little bit with some of the safe circle groups. I participated, but I resisted. I resisted Zoom meetings.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been resisting them, and I'm loosening up about that. Really, really feeling comfortable at this moment.
Great.
Yeah, yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much.
Cool.
And Janet, how about you?
Oh, I'm already unmuted. I don't know if you can see all the light coming in through the window, all the streaks.
Mm.
I kind of feel like that's the sun shining on this, so looks a bit rainbowy from here. So
Mhm.
anyway, yeah, I thought the sun came. Oh, go away. I have a fly who wants to get in on the conversation. I'm in Ontario, in Canada. And I'm here because I've been looking for quite a while for a place just to be around other people who know what's going on. It feels very lonely to go out in the world, and there's a couple people who have a vague idea, but and again, how much of this do you lay on somebody about how bad it is? Anyway, so and I'm writing, and so the more I write and the more I learn, the more the heavier it feels. So I'm here to be around kindred spirits, if that's a good way to put it.
Mhm.
And my screen keeps freezing up once in a while, so if I kind of go and crackly, there's something going on at this end. So yeah,
Right.
so I'm very happy to be here. It's some of the stress in my soul feels like it's kind of going. Whew. So
Mm.
thank you all.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That light is truly angelic. Just
Isn't it?
beautiful.
It's like Yeah, I thought, oh, I'm not going to pull the curtain because it's like the sun coming
Hey, wow,
in.
No, no,
yeah,
no.
amazing.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, Sumitra, how about you?
Hi, I'm Sumitra. I'm from Bellingham, Washington, and I've been involved in one of Dean's circles for I think over a year now, and really drawn to um, community that's centered around healing, truth, and it's kind of soul, especially during these times, and in regards to um, what's happening right now and how to make sense of it. And I guess I was told in my 20s that these times were going to come. And I've definitely been put on a healing journey um, ever since. And holding what was to come in my mind along the way. And very interested in soul, um, soul's path, and also reweaving soul back into the soul of the world. And I
Hmm.
think that is part of humanity's quest at this time, or the um, the mission um, is to kind of heal that split, that severance that exists right now. So there's a lot I could say, but for the sake of time, I just want to say thank you, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Dean, and everyone. I look forward to getting to know you a bit more.
Thank you. I would like to just take the next few minutes, very few minutes, like two or three, to give you the bare bones minimum information that you might need to understand what a year-long course. That seems like a lot. What does it involve? So what it involves is the first and third Saturdays of every month between September, this coming September, like next month, the first and third Saturdays of every month between then and September of next year, 2025. On those first and third Saturdays, there'll be two 1 hour, almost back to back calls, circles, times to connect. Each of the first sessions, the first hours, is going to be about the what I call the book club. We're going to have a parallel study or reading of a book together that'll be different books at different times in the year. And the first 3 months is going to be a book called Climate Cure by a very dear friend, Jack Adam Weber. I can't go into too much detail about that now, but I would be thrilled to. If anybody has any questions about any part of what I'm presenting here and you would like to get more information, I will make sure that you've got my email or my phone number, and I'm happy to give you as much fuller detail as you might be hungry for. So anyway, the first and third Saturdays of each month, book club will be the first hour on each of those Saturdays. The second hour, which there'll be a half-hour break, is what I meant by they're almost back to back. And so in the second hour on every one of those Saturdays is going to be what we could call the general course material, which is as much as possible going to be embodied, presence based, while there will be some sense making content and conversation. I think you're going to find it compressed, meaning far less content about sense making. You've been involved with that conversation. If you've been involved with anything about sense making in the past 5 years or so in the YouTube community anyway, it can be pretty verbose and it can be pretty heady and it can fill the space. No matter how big the space is, it can fill it. That is not our version of sense making here. So I just wanted to give you that brief picture of those sessions, which are really kind of the heart. That's the time that we have the opportunity to come together. There is no mandatory anything in this. So you could actually be a part of this course and never be live on a Zoom call if you didn't want to be, or you couldn't be. We will be recording those sessions and then making them available for someone who might not be available on the day of. There are many, many resources that are just a click away here in this living resilience environment. So if somebody gets a real hunger to find out what is this new information about artificial intelligence and how do I get to know more about this topic, you'll just be again a click away from getting much more information and curated information if that's of interest to you. Or it could be about the current situation with oceans or insects and so on. There are quite a few topics that are just in the past month being updated and made more current. Finally, another piece that I would mention is that there are going to be, I've already mentioned the Poetry of Predicament YouTube channel, which is our video podcast. There will be a series of interviews. There are already a handful up and ready to watch. And there will be dozens and dozens more, and also panel discussions on specific topics. You may also consider yourself a possibility for one of those YouTube podcast interviews if you would like. If you feel that you have something of significance to offer the community, I'd be more than happy to consider you for one of those interviews. This is not meant to be another parade of the same, say, 25 or 50 voices that we hear constantly in the space of collapse aware or collapse acceptance. What I'm really searching for in this year-long course is what are the inner resources and what are the external resources that we can bring together and curate together to be more and more present in the face of larger and larger stressors. I think you're going to find, I don't mean to be offensive here, but I think you're going to find very little hope here or ways to fix things here in order to hope that this culture will continue, that we'll be able to fix it enough that we can get it back to normal and then we can continue on with life. That may be self-evident. I'm not quite sure who I'm speaking to here. So again, I don't mean that to be offensive if that's a new notion to you. And I mean nothing offensive about anyone's definition of hope. But I do find that that is one of the most corrosive, misunderstood, and misused terms in our current life together on this planet. Hope seems to be just a hope that we can return to normal. It makes me think of what the mantra was in the pandemic. So now what I'd like to do is, I've already told you probably a little bit more than I should have about what it isn't. You know, this isn't another fire hose to the face of too much content about doom scrolling and what's so messed up and and so on and so on. I think that's a fairly well-known track. And while there will be updates and they will be curated and minimized, those that any of us deem really important enough to just let each other know about, I'm really drawn to the words that were used during the introductions just a few minutes ago. A number of y'all mentioned the word soul, and almost all of us spoke something about a quieter kind of connectedness with the people around us or in our work in the world and so on. That is indeed the door that I'm planning on opening up for us all to walk through together. I'd like to share with you a few slides and words from one of my strongest mentors in in my lifetime, a man who's a therapist and an author, and he calls himself a soul activist. Probably the first soul activist I've ever met. And he has an extraordinary ability to weave together, as they well should be, the notion of grieving together as a normal and deeply nourishing and essential element of human life, and soul, grieving together and soul. I would like to share with you some slides that come from one of his apprentices who has just taken over his space while he takes some much deserved time away. Holly Trular is truly one of the most brilliant people I have ever met as well. And she has those same leanings that I just mentioned that Frances carries, Frances Weller. Holly also brings a robust and extraordinarily heartful commitment to inclusion in how she lives into soul, lives into the power of grieving together, of metabolizing large-scale human experience together. So that's the nature of what we're about to read together. Let me see. I'm wondering, is there anyone who feels like reading off the cuff? Could I read a couple of these slides? Perhaps I could do one, and then whoever would like to volunteer could do one, and we could just go back and forth for a bit.
I'll read one.
All right. This one. This is The Long Dark, Centering Soul in Collapse. A necessary and multi-generational time of decay, collapse, endings, and sheddings. We are deepening into the long dark. And now, Richard, if you would.
Yep. We are entering the long dark. I use that term not negatively at all. I use it alchemically, that certain things can only happen in darkness. Frances Weller.
We are seeing this last gasp effort to try to uphold the old structures, keep capitalism going, keep the stock market inflated. They're all going to collapse. They have to, because the system is unsustainable, not only in terms of world resources, but just in terms of human capacity to endure that kind of emptiness. Could I have a volunteer for this next one?
Well, go ahead.
Okay, I'll read it. The collapse is happening. What we have to do right now is ask ourselves and each other, how do we become skillful in navigating our walk in the dark? Frances Weller.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Janet, I saw you volunteering a moment ago.
How do we cultivate collaboration? How do we cultivate fields of reciprocity with the earth within human and more than human communities so that we're not extracting more than what can be replenished? How do we cultivate the spiritual values of restraint and mutuality?
And was there another person that was, I think
Yeah,
Robert, I heard your voice.
yeah, sure. We need to unlearn our reification of self because self is a boundaried, encapsulated identity. It cuts me off from you. It cuts me off from the trees. It cuts me off from the turtles and the sky and the moon. What we need to remember to re enter, to reanimate, is that we are living embodiments of soul life. And soul is incredibly entangled with everything around us.
Thank you. Sencho, I'm wondering if you would be willing to read.
Sure, of course. The work right now is to become immense. We have to get our arms around immense things, violence and hatred and bigotry and racism, and also around love and compassion and devotion and a certain fidelity to protect what is alive. We have to become immense. This is not a time to become small.
Beautiful. Thank you. Rebecca, would you be willing to read?
Yes, of course. We have to give up the idea of private salvation and the idea of private healing. That's all fantasy. We either heal communally or we don't.
Do I have a volunteer for the longer piece in the white space?
I can do that. Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. Holly Trular. Hello, brave ones. As we continue exploring collective initiation and polycrisis, let's talk about the long dark. This is a term my mentor, collaborator, and friend, Francis Weller, has been using. It's an alchemical and soulful way to explore collapse. It invites imagination, inquiry, and mystery. The question becomes, how do we become skillful at being in and navigating the dark together? I want to be abundantly clear that dark is not bad. We've been in pale times for a while, and we're losing each other. We're losing meaning. We're lost. It's in the dark that transformation happens. It's in the dark that we get quiet and listen to the beating of our own hearts and whispers of our soul. We can't outrun the long dark. It's here and we're going to be in it for at least a few decades, if not some generations. Instead, we learn from the beings who thrive in the dark: mycelium, owl, deep sea octopus, bats, mice, coyote, and start to feel our way through together. The last slide is the most potent for me. We either heal communally or we don't. In the same interview quoted here, Francis says, can we get there? We have to. The only thing that's ever been sustainable as a human species are small-scale, localized cultures. This is what I'm most interested in: land-based, long-term communities and culture. I hope more and more of us will answer this courageous call as we navigate the long dark. So I'll just read the words here. Go
Sure.
ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
Presence, initiation, embodied, reclaim center, home, and beauty.
Thank you all so much for being willing to read and join in with this. And it's on that list on the left that I'd like to just spend our last few minutes together. Excuse me, I mentioned that, I'm I'm done with the fire hose of constantly too much content all the time, like a fire hose to the face. It's deeply crippling and tends to deaden a connection with soul. It's not the realm of soul to have that fire hose to the face. So if not that, then what? And that's the type of question. And we've just read through the type of exploration that this year is really about. It is, for me, soul based, which is a deep resonance in what I would call my implicit system. I always do this motion with my hand from about the top of my neck down to my perineum, and it's there where this resonance that I'm talking about occurs. And I believe it's true for many, if not all of us. That's the kind of point of departure if we're not going to be spending so much time in our heads and in the content world. It is down to that soul level. It's really a descent into the soul level together that I consider this whole track of Islands of Sanity to be. That's really where this whole project lives. Part of that implicit system in the center of our bodies is the deep remembering that that is our little installation within that same implicit resonant system writ as large as it can be, meaning that is the oneness, that is the love, that is the interbeing that I believe people have been talking about in the wisdom traditions for many, many years. That is the realm that I would assert that this conversation, this exploration occurs in. So these will be times together and practices together, sitting in circle together with our attention on presence and possibly an initiation. Like if these times are not times of despair, are not times of fear-based polarization, what are they? And that type of question seems to imply this is an opportunity for us to step over a threshold together, to possibly embody sacred elderhood. And really, no matter what our age and our actual age is, this is a time of ripe possibility to be initiated into sacred elderhood. That is an embodied practice, and it happens in the process also of reclaiming our center or reclaiming that home, which is also in that implicit core. These are just a few words about the nature of the practices that will be on offer. It'll be each of these words will be pretty easy to locate when we're sharing about each of us will be choosing and curating our own practices and our own resources in these circles together. And the joy of it is that we will be able to share deeply with each other, even though there will be a great amount of difference between your curated practices and mine. I guess the last piece that I would say that I'm so nourished by is a commitment to beauty. If you have a chance to look around at some of the previous courses that are still very much available for people to do in the Living Resilience community space, the most recent one is called Collateral Beauty. And it's meant to be a kind of a counterpoint to the doom scrolling. Like, enough already with the doom scrolling. So what if our our steps together along the path could be steps into deeper and deeper beauty? So I've said a few things about these particular emphases in the work. We've also just gone through Holly Trular mostly sharing some of Francis Weller's profound speaking about the long dark. I'm curious, let me just get us back to where we can see each other a little bit better. And I'm wondering if in our last 10 minutes or so, if each of you could just take a scan of what you're present to, as each of these quotes were read, or particular topics were mentioned, or even in our own introductions of ourselves. What are you noticing is stirring for you? Anything you would like to share?
Me.
Please, Jenna.
My dog has come to say hello, so she's shoving her face in my lap, being a big dog.
Yeah.
First of all, Francis has a lovely book called The Wild Edge of Sorrow. I read part of it, and it's so touching I have to stop. But the other thing I'd like to offer this group that came up in that last little bit of reading about the long dark is a couple of weeks ago. I live in the country, and I heard this weird sort of noise out in the woods that sounded a little bit like a strangled, something in distress, I thought. And I opened the door and went out. And as I went out, this big dark shape flew over the top of my house. And it was an owl. I thought it was a bat to start with, but it was way too big. It was this big owl flew right over my head, and that was pretty magical. But I went out to see what this weird noise was. And this owl kept flying around under the trees over my head. And she was huge. And eventually I found out that weird noise was one of two juvenile great horned owls who were in the trees around my house as well. And I'm just saying this because it felt like it was magic, but I didn't know quite why. So when we went through that list about the long dark and the creatures who know how to live in the dark, and I thought, oh, maybe that's why those owls came to visit. At any rate, so I'm just offering that as a sign that we're doing the right thing, if that makes any sense. So,
Janet, thank you.
Yeah.
She was huge, like it was dark, and here's this big dark shadowy shape flying under the trees and over me, and then there's these two young ones. It was like, wow.
She got your attention.
Oh yes, and it felt magical, but I didn't know what it was connected to. I just knew it was magical. But now, having seen that piece of writing, I went, oh, this is what it is. It's about learning how to live how they live. So anyway.
I can jump in here. That was so beautiful, so beautiful. I got in touch with how I have always felt so severed from life itself, from the human family, from certainly the culture I live in. And to hear those words, I just felt deeply thankful. I also thought that when we're in the womb, shaping ourselves to be the humans that we are, we're in the dark for 9 months. And in the dark, we become who we become, which is pretty darn amazing. So beautiful, the idea of the long dark. Yeah, just really thankful for the opportunity to deepen into this soul level with each other. Thank you all, and thank you, Dean.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious as to where did those quotes from Francis Weller come from? A book of his? I'd be curious to know where they came from.
You know, actually, those quotes came from a posting on Instagram from Holly Trular. And I left her the very same question. I said, Holly, how can I get the full interview? Because she just actually says this is quoted from an interview with him. So as soon as I have that, I'm happy to post that to you, and I'd send you an email or whatever. So yeah.
Thank you.
I wanted to just mention from where I sit that and being here with you guys, that there's equivalencies that are just coming right smack at me, and I just wanted to mention them, or definitions, or adding to meanings. One is soul, and the way that I feel that is core, is my bones and marrow and everything that I am. And by the same token, the darkness that we're referring to is emptiness, but it doesn't have a color. Darkness doesn't have a color. We can picture darkness as black, which has a connotation of danger and mystery and all of that. Mystery is okay, but that connotation of negativity and death and so forth, I don't want to see it that way, because my orientation is to emptiness. So if you view emptiness as something that isn't any kind of color at all, but is expressing the same thing that I think Francis Weller is, that might be helpful. And the insides of our bodies, until we open them up, they're dark. Open them up and you get lots of colors. But my core and everything inside this skin bag is an empty non-color.
Excuse me, really well said. And for me, the word soul is one of the few words that doesn't seem to budge with all the pressure of the acceleration of our world, especially the AI, our artificial intelligence assault on our intimacy, assault on our attention. They are really going for the core of our human experience. And already artificial intelligence gets consistently higher ratings for rapport and human connectedness and so on, and compassion, than live human beings, live therapists, live doctors, live dentists, and so on. We are under assault for the human elements inside of ourselves that we find so precious, that are often so difficult to define. AI is defining it and mastering it better than virtually anyone. So to me, this is a precious core study is how to be more fully human with one another over these coming weeks, months, years. I can think of nothing more precious, more important to cultivate together. We are just about at the end of the official time here. I do have kind of a strange offering. I think it's a wondrous, somewhat humorous and somewhat fantastical offering from some creative friends of mine. It's a little 2-minute video. It is made, ironically, with artificial intelligence video production, but it is done in the most tongue-in-cheek, but also aspirational kind of way. And a warning that it is semi-political, but even that the edges are rounded from. So I wanted to say that's available for anyone who doesn't have a hard stop here at the end. I'd like to take a few moments to just complete with one another, say goodbye to those who need to go. And if there's anyone who would like to stick around for this kind of odd thing that I was just describing, you're more than welcome to stay. So first, I would like to just, I can feel myself getting kind of excited because I think it's a really well done piece, this 2-minute piece. But I would like to thank each of you for coming. And it's at the level that I was just describing of the preciousness of us cultivating and curating our felt sense of soul with one another, that this work is founded in. So I feel so much more connected with you all than when we started. And I'm very much appreciative for that feeling of connection. If you come and join us in any part of our work, whether it's this long thing or any of the other courses, great. If we don't see each other again, I absolutely wish you well. And I just really look forward to sitting in circle with as many of y'all as are willing and able. Was there anybody else who has just a word or two to complete for yourself?
Yeah, I did want to say something. When we were going through those, I don't know what to call them, those paragraphs that people were reading,
Yes.
something really leaped out at me, and that was when, I guess it was Francis Weller said, we have to become immense
Mhm.
to deal with all this, to grapple with it and to encompass it and to, I guess, embrace it.
Yes.
That really, wow, that hit me hard. I mean, that was intense. And I felt my heart just go wham, just,
Mm. Mm.
so, just to become immense, that I got that. It's like, wow, that really says it, I mean, I'd never heard it put just like that. So I really appreciated that.
I'm there with you. Absolutely there with you.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Say the hour went very fast, and I can't believe it's over. So
Yeah.
So a small hour for an immensity.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Maybe we'll have
We'll have to make the hours immense.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. That's good.
All right. So the official ending point, let's declare that right now for this particular hour of time being together. Thank you so much. If you have a hard stop or are uninterested in this little video 2-minute thing, then Janet is out of here. And if anybody else would like to stay, this I think is well worth your 2 minutes.
Yep.
I'm in.
Shall
Yep,
we?
me too.
So just a word of warning. This is also an Instagram post, which means that it came in in a very small format. So I've
Right.
blown it up a little bit, but you might have to lean in to just get a slightly clearer view of the imagery. And off we go.
Okay.
This is for me, the ultimate fantasy of what might happen to resolve the Donald Trump situation.
I think I know what you're going to show.
Alex Friedman told me to go to Peru and do ayahuasca with his shaman. I thought it'd help with the election, give me that edge. But what happened next, I wasn't ready. I saw it all, greed, lies, my father's lack of love, my mother's coldness. Demons, dark entities, everything I'd buried came rushing out. It was brutal and life-changing. So I left politics to heal myself. I gave away most of my possessions and I went to India, meditated with the gurus, met all the mystics, studied all the metaphysical schools, seeking the truth. I did every therapy, somatic experiencing, breathwork, and parts work. You wouldn't believe the things I tried. I purged everything I thought made me great. Slowly, the suffering started to fade. I started sharing what I'd learned. I created something bigger, holding space for others, an intentional community, and I led with love, guiding people to reconnect with their higher selves. They say I'm the greatest shaman now. Nobody does it better, and maybe they're right. It's a new kind of winning, one where I lead others to peace.
All right.
My.
Well, we can dream, can't we?
Yeah. It's actually a relief for me to see his face in a whole different context of, what he's describing. It's like, it's so difficult to look at people who are in a space like that is just so hard and empty and cold and just impossible to puncture.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for spending your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And I look forward to possibly seeing you on the first Saturday of September.
See you then.
Absolutely. See ya. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Dean.